Sanatana Dharma, an elementary textbook of Hindu religion and ethics, narrated by Vaidyanathan. Part 3, Chapter 11. The reaction of virtues and vices on each other. We have now considered many virtues and vices separately and have seen in many illustrations how virtues lead to happiness and vices to misery. We have finally to see how a virtue helps to produce a virtue in another and a vice, so that we may learn how to help others to rightness of thought and action and thus promote their happiness. By showing love to others, we awaken love in them. By showing hate, we awaken hate. We are apt to feel as others feel. A person who is angry makes those around him angry, and so quarrels arise and grow more and more bitter. An angry word brings an angry reply, and that brings a still more angry retort, and so on and on. On the other hand, gentle words bring gentle words in reply. Kindness arouses kindness, and good deeds cause good deeds in others. When we understand this, we can use positive emotions to counteract negative ones in others instead of letting ourselves be influenced by their negativity. If someone speaks angrily, we should control ourselves and respond gently. This gentle response will calm them and reduce their anger. This is what it means to return good for evil. By acting this way, we can restore harmony when it is disturbed and maintain it for everyone's happiness. When Draupadi urged King Yudhishthira to attack the Kurus after he had been cruelly cheated and ruined by them, the wise king pointed to her that returning evil for evil could only result in the continuance of misery. The wise man who, though persecuted, suffers not his wrath to be aroused, joys in the other world, have passed his persecutor over with indifference. For this reason, it has been said that a wise man, whether strong or weak, should ever forgive his persecutor, even when the latter is in straits. If amongst men there were not some equal to the earth in forgiveness, there would be no peace among men, but continued strife born of wrath. If the injured were to return their injuries, if one chastised by his superior were to chastise his superior in return, the consequence would be the destruction of every creature, and sin would prevail. If the man who hath ill speeches from another returns those speeches, if the injured man returns his injuries, if the chastised person chastises in return, then would fathers slay son, and son fathers. Then would husbands slay wives, and wives husbands. Then, O Krishna, how could birth take place in a world thus filled with anger? For you know that the birth of creatures is due to peace. Hear how Dasharatha, the king, turned away the anger of his wife with soft humility. Kaushalya, the mother of Ramachandra, was torn by anguish over the loss of her unequaled son, exiled for long years from her fond arms. For the first time, she spoke angry words at Dasharatha. You have killed your innocent son with your own hands, O king. You have followed the ancient path, upheld by your ancestors with great effort. The husband is the first refuge of a woman. The son is the second. The relatives are the third. There is no fourth. You have abandoned me. Rama is gone. I cannot leave you here to go to him. In every way, you have destroyed me, the kingdom, and the people. The king heard the harsh words and bent lower under the greater burden of sorrow. His mind was distraught and he lost consciousness. Recovering, he saw Kaushalya still beside him. In that moment, the memory of his past sin, which caused this misery, came back to him. Burning with double sorrow of that sin and the loss of Rama, trembling with folded hands and bent head, he spoke to her. Forgive me, Kaushalya. I fold my hands to you. You have always been tender hearted, even to others. Bear with your husband, whether he is good or bad. I am already so broken by my sorrow. Do not speak harsh words to me, even in your anguish. She heard the piteous speech of the humble king, and tears of pity rushed forth from her eyes like new rainwater from the waterfalls. Her anger vanished, yielding to deep humility, remorse, and fear of sin for those harsh words. She seized the hands of the king, put them on her head, and with great agitation said, Forgive me, O king. I beg you with my head at your feet. It is for forgiveness, not for you to sin for me. A woman is not respected by the wise in this world or the next if she forces her husband to appease her. I know the Dharma, and I know that you, my husband, know it too, and therefore must keep your promise and uphold the truth. Sorrow for my son led me to say those wrong words in a moment of weakness. Sorrow destroys all resolve. Sorrow destroys all wisdom. There is no enemy like sorrow. It swells within my heart like rivers during the rains when I think of my beloved. Thus Kaushalya's bitterness was overcome by Dasharatha's sweet humility and patience. If he had answered bitterly to her bitter words, the quarrel would have grown and their common grief would have driven them apart. But he met her pride with humility, her reproach with meekness, and her anger with tenderness, and thus humility, meekness, and tenderness were aroused in her. Ramachandra awakened trust towards Bharata in Lakshmana's angry heart by showing trust himself. Rama, having left Ayodhya with his wife and brother to keep his father's word, was dwelling in the forest when he heard the distant murmurs of a marching army. He ordered Lakshmana to ascend a tree and look. Lakshmana saw that it was Bharata coming into the forest with a great throng of men. Anger at the exile forced Lakshmana to suspect Bharata, and he hastily asked Rama to prepare for battle, believing Bharata was coming to slay them and secure his sovereignty. But Rama's mind was full of love for Bharata, not anger. Tenderly he said, Mistrust in him not. If I say to him, give all this kingdom to Lakshmana, he will say but one word, yes. Lakshmana's wrath vanished, replaced by shame. When Bharata arrived, he begged and prayed Rama to return to Ayodhya. However, Rama would not break his father's word in letter or spirit. Bharata then took Rama's walking sandals and placed them on the throne as a symbol of the rightful sovereign, ruling Ayodhya in Rama's name and as his regent for the 14 years of Rama's wanderings. Over and over again, during their exile, Yudhishthira's wife and brothers, losing heart and patience, blamed him for his loyal adherence to his agreement with the Kauravas and his patient endurance of wrong. Over and over again, that noble heart, pierced and tortured by the reproaches of his loved ones, won them back by gentleness to the path of truth and honor. Thus Bhima, giving way to fierce anger, bitterly upbraided his elder brother for the common virtue of keeping a promise made to gamblers who had overreached him. He laid the loss of kingdom and riches at Yudhishthira's door, reproached him with weakness, deserting the virtues of his order and making him ridiculous. But Yudhishthira, summoning all his patience and remaining silent for a few moments, answered gently that doubtless all Bhima's words were true. I cannot blame you for torturing me with your sharp words, for it is my own folly that has brought this calamity upon us all. I should have controlled my mind and not let it be influenced by arrogance, vanity, and pride. Therefore, I cannot reproach you, O Bhima, for your harsh words. Yet I have given my pledge, and who can break a pledged word? Death is easier to bear than gaining a realm through a lie. What is the use of speaking to me so harshly? My heart is already broken by the sight of the sufferings I have caused. But I cannot break my word. Wait, my brother, for better days to return, just as the sower waits for the harvest. Know, Bhima, that my promise cannot be made untrue. Virtue is better than life itself or the joys of heaven. Kingdom, sons, fame, wealth, all these do not compare to even a fraction of truth. Thus patiently did the prince bear his brother's angry taunts, and ever was he ready to meet harsh blame with gentle humility, and to win by love a yielding that his proud brothers would never have given to wrath. As gentle sympathy arouses love, so does thoughtless ridicule arouse hatred, and hatred in turn gives rise to many evils. The fame of Yudhishthira spread far and wide, and all men praised the splendor of his Rajasuya sacrifice. This praise, bestowed on his hated rival, filled Duryodhana's heart with jealousy. This evil emotion was made bitter and more active by the careless disregard of his feelings shown by Bhima and others. One day, as Yudhishthira sat on his golden throne, surrounded by his brothers, courtiers, and kings, Duryodhana and his brothers entered the assembly hall. Deceived by the art of Maya, the Dhanava, who had built Yudhishthira's palace with skill and craft, Duryodhana mistook a crystal lake for water and drew up his garment to avoid wetting them. Later, he fell into water that looked like solid ground. Bhima laughed boisterously and rudely, and others followed his bad example, although Yudhishthira reproved their lack of courtesy. Duryodhana, with a black frown, went away ashamed, with rage in his heart, and returned to Hastinapura, vowing vengeance for the insult. This was one of the many causes that led to the gambling match, the exile, the fierce battle of Kurukshetra, and the slaughter of Duryodhana and his and Yudhishthira's kinsmen. Evil returned with evil only gives birth to new evil, lengthening the chain of misery. Brigu had a son, Jamadagni, known for his great austerities and rigid life. In his family was born Rama, later called Rama of the Axe or Parashurama. Though a Brahmana by birth, Rama had a heart of a Kshatriya, as his grandfather Brigu had prophesied, fit for the military order. Jamadagni also harbored a fierce temper, which his austerities had not wholly burned away, causing great trial and misery to his lineage. Jamadagni, furious over a hasty doubt of his wife's chastity, ordered his sons to slay her. None would lift a hand against their mother except Rama, the youngest, who cut off her head with an axe. Granted a boon by his father, he asked for his mother's life to be restored, and then went on a pilgrimage to atone for the crime of matricide. But the evil wrought by Jamadagni's anger was not exhausted. While her sons were absent, Renuka, Jamadagni's wife, offered hospitality to Arjuna, son of Kritavirya. Intoxicated with pride, Arjuna deemed her reception unworthy of his greatness and forcibly took the calf of the cow whose milk supplied the butter for the daily sacrifice. When Rama returned, Jamadagni told him what had happened. The sorrowful mooing of the cow for her calf intensified Rama's anger, and he lost self-control in passion, rushing off to slay Arjuna, cutting off his 1,000 arms after a fierce fight. This act aroused the fierce wrath of Arjuna's kinsmen, who, to return evil with evil, rushed to Jamadagni's hermitage and slew him with arrows while he sat engaged in meditation. Forgiveness, the only thing that could cut the chain of evil, was not in Rama of the Axe's heart. He bewailed his father, burned his body with due rites, and vowed by the funeral pyre to slaughter the Kshatriya Varna. Thus the evil grew, ever swelling to larger proportions. Rama took up his axe, attacked and slew Arjuna's kinsmen, and then warred with all Kshatriyas, nearly exterminating that warrior Varna. Even when we are treated with injustice and unkindness, it is best to preserve sweetness and agreeableness of behavior, and thus win the one who treats us so, whether superior, equal, or inferior, to show sweetness and agreeableness in return. Once Durvasa visited Duryodhana and proved to be a very difficult guest to please. In vain did Duryodhana and his brothers treat him with the greatest honor, waiting on him day and night. Sometimes Durvasa would say, "I am hungry, O king." Give me some food quickly. Other times he would go out for a bath and Duryodhana would have food prepared for his return, only for Durvasa to say, I shall not eat anything today, as I have no appetite. He would suddenly demand, feed me quickly, or rise at midnight, call for a meal, and then carp at it and refuse to touch it. Durvasa tormented Duryodhana for a while, but when he found that Duryodhana never showed either anger or impatience, he became gracious to him and said, I have the power to grant you a boon. Choose whatever you wish. Since I am pleased with you, you may obtain anything from me that is not against Hindu religion or morals. Sometimes a person is so hard hearted that no kindness can melt them, and they go on unyieldingly until they perish. Duryodhana serves as a striking illustration of this. Having robbed his cousins of their kingdoms and riches and driven them to exile, Duryodhana resolved to feast his eyes on their poverty and hardships in the forest. Advised by the wily Shakuni, who told him that he would increase his joy by seeing the misery of his rivals, he took his brothers, friends, and the royal ladies with him, hoping the Pandavas would suffer shame under the contrast. His cruel plot failed when he was attacked and captured by the king of Gandharvas and his hosts, whom he had insulted in his overbearing pride. Some of the fugitives ran to King Yudhishthira and prayed for his aid. The gentle king, rebuking Bhima for his cutting words of refusal, bade his brothers arm themselves and rescue their kinsmen, remembering that the family honor was stained by the seizure of Duryodhana and the ladies of their house. Asked for help with words like, Oh, hurry to my aid! Who wouldn't be noble enough to assist even an enemy, seeing them seeking shelter with joined hands? Granting a boon, ruling a kingdom, and the birth of a son are great joys. But, O sons of Pandu, freeing an enemy from distress is equal to all three combined. So spoke the high souled king, and his brothers obeyed. The battle raged for some time, and then Arjuna and the king of the Gandharvas, who were friends, checked the struggle. Arjuna inquired into the reason for the attack on Duryodhana. The celestial king explained that he knew Duryodhana's wicked motive in visiting the forest and was carrying him for his punishment to Indra. Arjuna prayed for his friend to set the captives free. At last, the Gandharva king promised to do so if Yudhishthira wished, after hearing the whole story. The Pandava prince listened silently to the account of the mean and cruel outrage contemplated by Duryodhana. Thanking and praising the Gandharvas, he set Duryodhana and his companions free. When the Gandharvas were gone, Yudhishthira spoke lovingly to his cousin. O child, never again act so rashly, for rashness never leads to happiness, O Bharata. A son of the Kuru lineage, may you be blessed with all your brothers. Return to your capital as you wish, and do not be sad or cheerless. Thus kindly did the blameless king treat his envenomed foe, the earthly author of his misery. But Duryodhana, departing, was only more filled with grief and anger. The kindness became a new offense, and he sullenly returned to Hastinapura, hating those who had returned his evil with kindly aid even more bitterly. Indeed, such stubbornness in anger is rare. Just as the sun softens butter, the warmth of kindness can soften an angry mood. By responding with gentleness and understanding, we can often diffuse anger and foster a more harmonious environment. Even when someone else's anger makes us feel angry, we can try to control it and avoid expressing it through words, looks, or gestures. This self restraint gradually diminishes the feeling of anger, and at the very least, we prevent adding fuel to the fire. With practice, we will find that another person's anger no longer triggers anger in us, and we can use all our strength to respond with kindness to their harshness. It is clear why bad company should be avoided. If we are around people who think unkind or evil thoughts, or who engage in wrong actions, impure, intemperate, or gluttonous acts, their feelings will influence us, pushing us towards similar thoughts and actions. Any hidden evils within us will become more active under such influences, making them stronger and harder to fight against. For these reasons, a person who wants to lead a pure and industrious life at school, preparing for a noble and useful manhood, should avoid bad company as much as possible. If he can't escape it, he should keep his mind busy with pure and high thoughts, trying to influence those around him for good instead of being influenced by them for evil. By applying our knowledge to practice in our own lives, we can make it fruitful and help bringing greater happiness to the world through noble living.